You can't just move in like this. I manage this property.
Ma'am, I bought this house. It's mine.
That's not what I was told. You owe rent.
No, I don't. You might want to check your facts.
He bought the house. He signed the papers. He moved in with his daughter. But when a neighbor demanded he pay rent for a home he owned, what followed turned an ordinary Nashville street into a lesson the whole town would never forget. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning, the kind where the air feels like a fresh start. Dion Graves stood in the middle of his new driveway, a single box in his hands, staring at the house he'd spent the last 7 years working toward. It wasn't huge or flashy, but it was his. 3 bedrooms, a porch that caught the morning light, and a big oak tree that looked like it had been waiting just for his daughter to swing from. He exhaled, long and slow, taking in what that moment meant. For most people, moving day is just another errand. But for Dion, it was proof. Proof that long nights in the architecture firm had finally paid off. Proof that the obstacles, the questions, the quiet judgments from clients who never thought he looked like an architect, all of it had led him here. Inside the house, the faint sound of laughter bounced off the empty walls. His 8-year-old daughter, Maya, was running from room to room, her socks sliding on the hardwood floor as she called dibs on the bedroom facing the backyard. Her voice echoed with joy. "Daddy, look! I can see the treehouse from my window." Dion smiled. "That's the point, kiddo. You've got the best view in the house." They had driven from their small apartment in East Nashville the night before, packed to the brim with boxes labeled in his careful handwriting. The move wasn't just about space. It was about peace. A neighborhood where Maya could ride her bike without worrying about traffic or noise. A place where the weekends might actually feel like weekends again. By midday, a few neighbors had wandered over, drawn by the sight of the moving truck. A couple across the street waved politely, the man introducing himself as Doug, retired from the Postal Service. His wife, Cindy, brought over a pie and said they were glad to see new folks on the block. Their smiles felt genuine, and for a moment, Dion relaxed. But not everyone came with a smile. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a woman standing by the hedges 2 houses down. Blonde bob, pastel sweater, clipboard tucked under one arm. She didn't wave. She didn't move. She just watched. Long enough for it to be noticeable. When Dion met her eyes, she quickly looked away and started jotting something down on her notepad. He tried to ignore it. Maybe she was taking notes for a gardening project. Maybe she was with the Homeowners Association. He didn't want to assume the worst. He'd promised himself not to read too much into things. Not this time. This was supposed to be a new beginning. By late afternoon, most of the boxes were inside. The sun dipped lower, painting the street in amber light. Maya was already in the driveway, drawing chalk flowers while Dion leaned against his car, sipping a bottle of water. A pickup truck slowed down as it passed. The driver, an older man, gave a stiff nod. Not friendly, but not hostile either. Still, Dion felt something in the air. Something he couldn't name, like he was being measured without anyone saying a word. That night, after tucking Maya in, he sat on the porch alone. The street was still, the only sound coming from a sprinkler down the block. He could see porch lights glowing from every house except one, the one where the woman with the clipboard had been. Her blinds were drawn tight. He leaned back in his chair, letting the cool air wash over him. He told himself this was what normal felt like. New house, new people, small town rhythm. But as he stared at the dark window across the street, a flicker of light appeared behind the blinds, as if someone was standing there, watching again. He chuckled under his breath, trying to make light of it. "Probably just a curious neighbor," he muttered. "People like to know who's moving in." Still, when he went inside, he double-checked the front door lock. The next morning came with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of Maya giggling at cartoons. Dion opened the blinds, sunlight spilling across the living room floor. For the first time in a long time, he felt like life was heading in the right direction. But just as he was starting to believe that peace had finally found him, a sharp knock echoed through the front door. And the moment he opened it, everything changed. But what started as a friendly greeting quickly turned into something Dion would never forget. The knock came again, sharp and deliberate, like someone determined to be heard. Dion set his coffee mug down and walked toward the door, his footsteps soft against the wooden floor. Through the frosted glass, he could make out a figure. The same woman he'd seen by the hedges the day before. Clipboard in hand, same pastel sweater, same tight smile. When he opened the door, she spoke before he could even say good morning. "Hi there. You must be the tenant?" Her voice had that sugary tone that wasn't sweet at all. Dion tilted his head slightly. "Tenant? No, I'm the owner." The woman raised an eyebrow and glanced down at her clipboard. "Oh, really? That's strange. I was told the property was still under management. I handle rental matters for the previous owner, so I'll need to see your lease, just for confirmation." Her phrasing, "I'll need to see," hit him like an order, not a question. He blinked, unsure whether to laugh or take her seriously. "I think there's some confusion," Dion said calmly. "The house was sold 3 weeks ago. I closed on it myself. You can check the county record." The woman didn't even look embarrassed. Instead, she squinted at him like he was the one making things complicated. Well, that's not what I was told. And since I'm the neighborhood coordinator, I have to make sure everything's in order. People can't just move in without notice." Dion crossed his arms, still polite but firm. "I'm sure there's no problem. My name's Dion Graves. I bought the house from a man named Paul Jenner. You can call him if you'd like." She pursed her lips. "Oh, I know Paul. He didn't mention selling." "He definitely did," Dion replied, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "The keys came straight from him." The woman's eyes darted from Dion to the living room behind him, where moving boxes still lined the wall, and then back to his face. "I see. Well, I suppose you wouldn't mind showing me proof of ownership, just to clear things up?" Dion took a slow breath. "Actually, I would mind. You're standing on my property, ma'am. If you have questions, you can call the county or the realtor. But you don't have any authority here." Her smile faltered. "There's no need to be rude. I'm just trying to maintain order in the neighborhood. We don't usually have confusion like this." He caught the hesitation in her voice, the pause between have and confusion. He knew what she meant, though she didn't say it out loud. Behind him, Maya appeared at the edge of the hallway, holding her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide. Dion gave her a reassuring nod. "Go finish your breakfast, baby. I'll be right there." The woman followed the child's movement for a moment before turning back to Dion. "I'll be filing a report with the Homeowners Association. They'll need to verify who you're renting from. You should probably get your paperwork in order before they contact you." "I don't rent," Dion said, voice low but steady. "I own this house. I worked hard for it, and I don't owe you or the HOA a single thing." Her expression hardened. "We'll see about that." She turned sharply on her heel and walked down the driveway, scribbling something on her clipboard before disappearing behind a parked SUV. Dion stood in the doorway for a long moment, the morning light spilling over his shoulders. He wasn't angry. Not yet. Mostly, he was stunned. It had taken less than a week for someone to try and question his right to exist on his own property. He closed the door slowly, exhaling through his nose. Maya peeked around the corner again. "Daddy? Who was that lady?" "Just someone confused," he said. "Don't worry about it." But he did worry. That evening, as the sun slipped below the rooftops, Dion noticed a small group of neighbors gathered near the curb, their voices low, their glances not so subtle. One of them pointed toward his house. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could guess. The next morning, a A white envelope appeared in his mailbox. No return address, just the words, HOA notice, typed neatly across the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with a short message. All residents must verify occupancy with the association. Failure to do so may result in fines or legal action. Dayon shook his head, muttering under his breath. Legal action? For moving into my own house? He grabbed his phone, called the number listed for the HOA, and got a voicemail. He left a calm, clear message explaining that he was the legal owner and expected a callback. Then he sat at his desk, staring at the wall for a long time. Something told him this wasn't over, but what started as a simple misunderstanding was about to turn into something much uglier and far more public. By Tuesday morning, the neighborhood that once looked peaceful began to feel smaller. Every driveway, every window seemed to hold a pair of eyes watching him. Dion tried to convince himself he was imagining it, but the shift was real. The polite waves from the first day had vanished. Now people glanced, whispered, and turned away just as quickly. He poured himself coffee and checked his phone. Still no callback from the homeowners association. Instead, there was an email from an address he didn't recognize. neighborhoodwatch@elmviewcircle.org. Mr. Graves, we've received multiple reports of suspicious activity related to your property. Please confirm your tenancy or ownership immediately to avoid further action. Regards, Neighborhood Watch Committee, Suspicious Activity. The words made his stomach turn. That afternoon, as he unloaded a few remaining boxes from his car, he noticed Sharon Lively standing at the end of his driveway again. This time, she wasn't alone. Two men stood beside her, both older, both holding the same clipboard-style folders. They weren't speaking to him, but he could feel the conversation was about him. Finally, he broke the silence. "Morning," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Something I can help you with?" Sharon looked up as though caught doing something she shouldn't, but recovered fast. "Mr. Graves, we're here to follow up on the occupancy issue. We still don't have any proof of ownership, so the committee has decided to file a report." Dayon set the box down slowly. "You've decided?" "Yes," one of the men added, his tone clipped. "We can't have unauthorized tenants moving into vacant homes. It invites trouble." Dayon straightened up, jaw tight. "Vacant? You're standing on my driveway. You see me living here. You've seen my daughter playing in the yard. What exactly looks vacant to you?" The man hesitated, clearly uncomfortable now. Sharon, though, didn't miss a beat. "Look, sir, no one's accusing you of anything. We just want things to be clear. If you're the owner, fine. Then show the paperwork." He took a step closer, not aggressive but firm. "I don't owe you my paperwork. You're not the police. You're a neighbor." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I'll take that as refusal to cooperate." Dion's voice dropped lower. "Take it however you want. Just remember, harassment is also against the law." The exchange drew attention. Curtains moved. Someone across the street stood on their porch pretending to water plants, while clearly listening. Dion could feel his pulse rising, but he forced himself to breathe through it. Losing his cool would only give her what she wanted. An excuse to call him hostile. He picked up his box, turned toward his door, and said over his shoulder, "Have a good day, Ms. Lively." That night, after putting Maya to bed, he heard footsteps outside. He looked through the blinds. Sharon was there again, this time with her phone raised, snapping pictures of his car, the mailbox, even his front door. Dion opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" She flinched slightly but didn't back off. "Just documenting for the committee." "Standard procedure." "Documenting what?" "My doormat." She ignored the sarcasm. "If you really own this house, it shouldn't bother you. People who have nothing to hide don't mind a little transparency." Dayon's patience snapped, but he kept his voice measured. "You're trespassing. Leave my property before I call the police." Her expression shifted. half offended, half triumphant, as if she'd been waiting for that line. "Go ahead," she said. "I'll explain everything when they arrive." She left soon after, but Dion couldn't shake the feeling that something was building. That this wasn't about property, but something much deeper. Something she didn't have the courage to say out loud. The next morning, he found a fresh notice taped to his door. This one wasn't typed. It was handwritten in thick black marker. "We don't want trouble here. Keep things quiet, or move out." He stared at the message, disbelief curdling into anger. He folded it, placed it in an envelope, and kept it as evidence. He knew better than to confront whoever had left it. Instead, he called his friend, Officer Lionel Briggs, a local patrol cop he'd known since college. "Lionel, man, I need your help," Dion said, explaining the situation. "This woman's harassing me. She's taking pictures, making up lies, getting the neighborhood against me." Lionel sighed. "Yeah, I've seen this kind of thing before. They hide behind community rules, but it's the same old garbage. I'll stop by tomorrow, off duty. Bring your deed and paperwork. We'll make sure this doesn't go any further." Dion thanked him, a wave of relief cutting through his frustration. But as he hung up, he caught movement outside the window again. The curtain from Sharon's house shifting just slightly. Watching. Always watching. But what Sharon didn't know was that Dion was done being quiet. And the next encounter wouldn't go the way she expected. By Thursday, the tension had built to something almost tangible, like a storm waiting to break. Dion woke early, long before sunrise, his mind already spinning with the events of the past few days. He went over every conversation, every look, every word that had been twisted against him. The coffee he poured sat untouched, as he stared out the kitchen window at the streetlight flickering over the cul-de-sac. Maya's laughter from upstairs was the only sound that reminded him why he couldn't lose his temper. She was innocent in all this. She just wanted to ride her bike, draw chalk hearts on the driveway, and eat pancakes on weekends. She didn't deserve to see her father treated like a stranger in his own home. At 9 a.m., Lionel called. "I'm off duty today," he said. "I'll stop by around 11. Bring everything you've got. The deed, emails, that letter. We'll handle this the right way." Dion thanked him, then sat at his desk, organizing documents. The sunlight cut across the room, falling on the photo of him and Maya at the beach. The only frame he'd unpacked so far. That small image grounded him, but peace didn't last. At 10:30, a patrol car rolled slowly down the street and stopped in front of his driveway. Dion frowned, his stomach tightening. He hadn't called the police. Not yet. He stepped outside as two uniformed officers got out. The older one adjusted his belt and approached with a polite but wary expression. "Sir, we got a call about a potential trespassing situation." "Are you Mr. Graves?" Dion's hands went cold. "Yes, I am." "Trespassing? On my own property?" Before the officer could respond, Sharon appeared from across the street, clutching her clipboard like a badge. "That's him, officer. I told you he's been living here without authorization. The association records still list this property as vacant." The younger officer turned to her. "Ma'am, we'll handle this. Please step back." But she didn't move. "I've called 3 times this week. He refuses to provide documentation. We can't just have people moving into empty homes. It's not safe for the neighborhood." Dion clenched his jaw, forcing his voice to stay calm. "Officers, I'm the legal owner. I have the deed inside if you'd like to see it. And for the record, she's been harassing me since I moved in." The older officer nodded. "All right, sir. Let's take a look." Dion went inside, retrieved a folder, and handed over the documents. The officers reviewed the pages. Deed, closing statement, property tax receipt, everything in order. The younger cop glanced up at Sharon. "Looks legitimate to me." Sharon's eyes flickered with disbelief. "You're just going to take his word for it? How do you know those aren't fake?" The officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, these are official county documents. There's nothing fake about them. She crossed her arms. Well, it still doesn't sit right. He doesn't fit the... She stopped herself mid-sentence, but the damage was done. Dion met her gaze, steady and sharp. Doesn't fit what, Ms. Lively? She looked away, pretending to check her clipboard. Never mind. Just doing my job. The older officer sighed. Ma'am, I think that's enough. This man owns his property. You're bordering on harassment. I'd suggest you let this go. Her face flushed, but she forced a tight smile. I'm just trying to protect the neighborhood. From what? Dion asked, voice calm but cold. From people who don't look like you. That silenced her completely. The small crowd of neighbors who'd gathered near the sidewalk shifted uncomfortably. The air hung heavy with embarrassment. Not for Dion, but for her. The officers handed his documents back and apologized for the misunderstanding. Sorry for the trouble, Mr. Graves. Have a good day. As they left, Sharon stood frozen, the confidence drained from her expression. When her eyes met Dion's, there was no power left behind them, only fear of her own exposure. Dion didn't say another word. He simply turned and walked back inside, closing the door quietly behind him. Inside, Maya peeked from the stairs. Daddy, were the police mad at you? He knelt beside her, pulling her close. No, baby. They just didn't know the truth yet. But they do now. She rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in days, he let out a shaky breath. He thought that might be the end of it. That the humiliation in front of the whole neighborhood would make Sharon back off. But he underestimated how far some people would go to save face. That evening, a black SUV parked near his mailbox and stayed there for nearly an hour. No one got out. The headlights stayed off. Just silence and shadows. Dion sat by the window, watching, waiting, every muscle in his body tight. He finally reached for his phone and texted Lionel. Come tomorrow morning. Bring your badge this time. Because Dion was done playing defense. The next time someone tried to challenge him, they'd be met with proof, not patience. By the next morning, the air on Elmview Circle felt charged, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Dion barely slept. He spent the night going over every detail, the police visit, Sharon's words, the looks from the neighbors. He'd kept his cool for as long as he could, but something in him had shifted. This wasn't about proving ownership anymore. It was about self-respect. Around 9 a.m., Lionel Briggs pulled up in his unmarked sedan. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of calm presence that made people think twice before saying something stupid. He walked up the driveway holding a coffee cup and gave Dion a firm handshake. Morning, brother. You all right? Dion shrugged. Trying to be. You'd think buying a house wouldn't come with a neighborhood trial. Lionel chuckled under his breath. Yeah, well, some folks love to play judge and jury. He looked around, eyes scanning the street. A few curtains moved, like usual. People were watching again. Lionel caught one of the movements and smirked. They sure do have an audience today. Dion gestured toward the porch table where a stack of documents sat neatly arranged. The deed, closing statement, utility bills, and a printout of the county's online record showing his name listed as the current owner. Let's get this over with, Dion said. They didn't have to wait long. Sharon Lively appeared less than 15 minutes later, as if she'd been waiting for a cue. Same clipboard, same pastel sweater, but this time her confidence had cracks. She walked over slowly, trying to hold on to authority she didn't really have. Good morning, Mr. Graves, she said, pretending civility. I hope you don't mind. I heard an officer was coming by, and I thought it'd be good to clear things up properly. Lionel turned toward her. You must be Miss Lively. She smiled. Yes, I am. And you are? He reached into his jacket and flashed his badge. Not aggressively, just enough for her to see. Detective Briggs, friend of Mr. Graves. Here on my day off to make sure no more unnecessary reports are filed. Her expression faltered. Oh, well, that wasn't my intention. I only wanted to—" He cut her off, polite but firm. "To accuse him of squatting on property he legally owns?" Sharon blinked rapidly, caught off guard. "No, of course not. I was simply following procedure. You see, in this neighborhood, there's no neighborhood procedure that allows residents to harass homeowners," Lionel interrupted, "especially when you've already been told the house was sold. I checked with the county myself this morning. It's in Mr. Graves's name, fair and square." She tried to smile again, but her voice wavered. "Well, that's good to hear. I just wish the information had been shared sooner. I was trying to keep things orderly." Dion finally spoke, his tone quiet but cutting. "Orderly? You called the police on me in front of my daughter. You've been standing outside taking pictures of my car. You spread rumors about me not belonging here. Is that your definition of orderly?" Sharon's hands tightened around her clipboard. "You're exaggerating. I was simply ensuring—" "Ensuring what?" Lionel stepped closer. "That the neighborhood stayed the way you wanted it?" The silence that followed was heavy. The only sound came from a dog barking down the street. A few neighbors had drifted out of their driveways, pretending to check mail or water lawns, but their eyes stayed locked on the confrontation. Lionel glanced toward them, then back at Sharon. "You might want to understand something, Ms. Lively. This man worked hard for this house. He didn't take shortcuts. He didn't sneak in. And the fact that you thought he had to prove himself to you says more about you than it ever will about him." Sharon's face flushed red, and for the first time, she had no answer. She looked small now, fragile in her silence, the clipboard at her side like dead weight. Dion didn't gloat. He just looked at her. Not with anger, but with a kind of exhausted disappointment. "You could have just welcomed us," he said quietly. "That's all it would have taken." Lionel folded the documents back into the folder and handed them to Dion. "Everything's clear. If she or anyone else tries this again, file a harassment complaint. I'll make sure it sticks." With that, he turned and headed for his car. Sharon stayed there a moment longer, trying to collect herself. Finally she whispered, "I didn't mean any harm." Dion shook his head. "Yeah, you did. You just didn't think I'd call you out for it." She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She turned and walked back to her house, shoulders hunched, eyes down. The clipboard hung limp at her side. By afternoon, the story had spread. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact suddenly found reasons to wave, some even offering awkward smiles as if to distance themselves from her behavior. Doug and Cindy from across the street came by with another pie. A small, silent apology that said more than words could. Dion accepted it politely. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just treat us like neighbors. That's all I ask." But while the confrontation was over, the aftermath was only beginning, and not everyone on Elmview Circle would handle it with the same grace. By the weekend, the entire block knew what had happened. It didn't matter whether they'd witnessed the argument themselves or heard it secondhand. The story had taken on a life of its own. In coffee shops, online neighborhood threads, even at the local farmers market, people were talking about the woman who tried to make a homeowner prove he belonged. For Dion, it was strange walking through his own neighborhood and hearing whispers soften when he passed. Some faces looked away, others forced smiles. But there was one thing he noticed above all. Sharon Lively's curtains stayed closed. The once self-appointed neighborhood coordinator had gone quiet. Sunday morning brought a light drizzle. Dion stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the rain streak across the windshield of his car. For the first time since moving in, the street felt calm. No cars idling near his mailbox, no strangers pretending to check their mail for the third time in an hour. Just stillness. Maya skipped out in her rain boots, holding an umbrella almost bigger than her. "Daddy, can I splash?" He smiled, kneeling to zip up her jacket. "Go ahead, just stay close to the sidewalk." Her laughter echoed off the wet pavement as she stomped through puddles, pure and free. For a moment, That sound was all he needed. A few houses down, Doug from across the street walked over holding a grocery bag. He hesitated at the edge of the porch, almost sheepish. "Morning, Dion. Thought you might want these. My wife baked too much banana bread again." Dion took the bag with a small grin. "Thanks, Doug. You didn't have to." Doug shifted awkwardly. "I know. But after the other day, look, not everyone here's like her. We don't want you thinking this place is rotten." "It's not." Dion nodded slowly. "I appreciate that. Really, I didn't move here to make enemies. I just wanted peace for me and my kid." Doug scratched his neck. "Can't blame you. Guess some folks can't handle change. But word's been spreading. People aren't happy with how she handled things." Dion raised an eyebrow. "You mean Sharon?" Doug gave a half smile. "Let's just say she's been asked to step down from her coordinator duties. HOA sent an email last night. Apparently, her little show embarrassed the whole board. That caught Dion off guard. He hadn't wanted revenge, just closure. But hearing that she was finally facing consequences, it was satisfying in a quiet way. "Maybe that'll make her think twice next time," he said. Doug nodded. "She'll lay low for a while. Folks around here might actually start acting neighborly again." After Doug left, Dion sat on the porch, letting the rhythm of the rain steady his thoughts. He didn't celebrate. There was no victory dance. He just felt a strange calm, the kind that comes after a long storm finally breaks. Later that afternoon, while unpacking boxes in the living room, he noticed movement outside. Sharon was walking her small terrier, head down, hood pulled tight. For a second, their eyes met through the window. She froze mid-step, guilt written across her face. Dion didn't move. He didn't wave or glare. Just looked back, calm and steady. That quiet confidence seemed to shake her more than any argument ever could. She hurried down the street, her dog trotting behind. That night, after dinner, Dion and Maya sat together on the couch watching an old Pixar movie. Halfway through, she turned to him and asked, "Daddy, why did that lady call the police on us?" He paused, setting his arm around her shoulders. "Sometimes people get scared of what they don't understand," he said softly. "But the way we deal with it, how we respond, that's what shows who we are." "Did she get in trouble?" Maya asked. "A little," he said with a small smile. "But more important, she learned something. And maybe the others did too." She leaned against him, thoughtful. "You didn't yell. You just talked. That's strong." Dion looked at her, his heart tightening a little. "That's how we make change, baby. Not by shouting louder, but by standing taller." The movie played on, but he wasn't really watching anymore. His mind wandered to the events of the week. The fear, the humiliation, the relief. In some strange way, it had brought clarity. People reveal who they are when they think no one's watching. But they also have the chance to grow when they're forced to confront themselves. He knew he couldn't change every prejudice in the world. But maybe, just maybe, one person seeing the truth up close was a start. But Dion didn't realize that his calm strength had done more than silence a neighbor. It had changed how an entire community saw itself. A week later, the neighborhood felt different. The tension that once lingered in the air had faded, replaced by something quieter, almost reflective. Lawns were freshly mowed again. Kids played on driveways without parents glancing nervously toward Dion's house. The gossip had run its course, leaving behind the kind of silence that follows after people realize they might have been wrong. Dion stood on his porch that Friday morning, looking across the street. Sharon's house still looked the same, neat flower beds, trimmed hedges, but the air around it carried a weight of its own. He hadn't seen her since that rainy afternoon. The curtains were open now, though, and for the first time, he saw her standing by the window, not watching, just standing. Her shoulders slumped, expression unreadable. Maybe regret, maybe exhaustion. He didn't hate her. That surprised him the most. After everything, the anger had burned out. What remained was clarity, a reminder that people reveal their truth through their choices. Maya ran out with her backpack, ready for school. "Daddy, can we have pancakes again tomorrow?" she asked, eyes bright. He smiled. "If you clean your room tonight, it's a deal." As they walked to the car, the neighbor 2 doors down, a woman named Carla Jensen, waved from her mailbox. "Morning, Mr. Graves." Your little one's adorable Dion waved back. "Thanks, Carla." The friendliness was new. Real, maybe. After a pause, Carla added, "Some of us are organizing a little neighborhood meet and greet next weekend. Potluck style. You and your daughter should come. It'd be good for everyone." He hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, we'll be there." When he got back from dropping Maya off, he found an envelope tucked under his doormat. His first thought was that it might be another notice. But this one was handwritten in neat cursive. No hostility, no threats. Inside was a single note. "Mr. Graves, I owe you an apology. I let my assumptions guide me instead of facts. You didn't deserve what I put you through. I hope one day you can forgive me. Sharon." Dion sat down on the steps, the letter in his hand. He read it twice, maybe 3 times, and then folded it carefully and slipped it into his pocket. Forgiveness wasn't instant, but it was possible. That evening, Doug and Cindy stopped by again, this time with a small welcome basket, cookies, a neighborhood directory, and a handwritten note that said, "Glad you're here to stay." They stayed a while, chatting about work, schools, and where to find the best barbecue nearby. It wasn't forced. It felt natural. And as the conversation drifted, Dion realized something. One act of prejudice had ended up forcing everyone to look at themselves, to reconsider how they saw their own community. Later that night, he sat on the porch, the soft sound of crickets filling the air. The sky stretched wide and peaceful, stars faint behind city light. He thought about how easily things could have gone another way. If he'd lost his temper, if he'd shouted back, if he'd let bitterness define him. But instead, he'd chosen patience, proof, and truth. Maya joined him with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "You're quiet," she said. "Just thinking," he replied. "About the lady?" He chuckled. "A little, but mostly about us." She tilted her head. "Are we gonna move again?" "No," he said firmly. "We're home now." She smiled and leaned against him. "Good. I like it here." He looked across the street again. Sharon's porch light flicked on. For a second, their eyes met. Not with hostility, but something closer to understanding. She gave a small nod before closing her door. It was brief, but it meant something. Dion turned to his daughter. "You know, Maya, sometimes the best way to change someone's mind isn't by arguing. It's by showing them who you are. Quietly, confidently. Letting the truth do the talking." She thought about it for a moment, then grinned. "So, we were the lesson?" He smiled back. "Maybe we were." The night breeze carried the faint scent of rain, and for the first time since moving in, the house truly felt like theirs. No suspicion, no fear, no tension. Just home. Dion leaned back, letting the peace settle around him. What started as confrontation had turned into revelation. He hadn't just defended his home, he'd reminded people what decency looked like when it's tested. Sometimes, strength isn't loud. It's steady. It's the calm voice that refuses to bend when truth is on its side. Because at the end of the day, dignity doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. If you enjoyed this story and believe in the power of standing tall with grace, don't forget to subscribe and share this video. Every story like this reminds us that real strength isn't in anger. It's in how we rise above it.